Hi, everyone, and thank you to those who have joined us today. Welcome to Gaining Control of Your Voice Data with Wilmac, where some of our subject matter experts will give you some history on how we've become voice specialists and how our solutions can fit into different organizations. It's currently 1 p.m. Eastern on March 23rd, 2022, if you need to know the day and the time, just in case. And I have a few notes to go over before we get started. All participants have been placed in listen-only mode with your microphone muted. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be available to watch on demand afterwards. You'll be receiving it in an email tomorrow. Please participate by commenting in the chat window and asking questions throughout the webinar on the right hand of your screen. If we can't get to the question that you submit during the webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually. And then just a quick request that after you leave the webinar, you answer the 3 survey questions that pop up on your screen. Thank you in advance. So thank you again for joining us for Gaining Control of Your Voice Data with Wilmac. We have some exciting content to review today. I might be a little biased about that, but I'll let you be the judge. And before we introduce ourselves, I want you to know why we put this webinar together. Now, Wilmac is a voice and digital technology company that has been around for close to 65 years now. Our birthday is this summer, wink, wink, nod, nod. We're based in Rochester, New York, and have offices in both Manhattan and Toronto. So we thought we could take some time to reflect on how we've become voice specialists and how we've evolved into a seller, a servicer, and developer for voice technology. We've grown a lot since our beginning in 1957, and hearing the story of a brand is so important to manifesting relationships with people like you. So thank you for listening to my spiel. Thank you for attending. And now that you know why we're putting on this webinar, here's what we'll be covering. We'll take a look at Wilmac's history and some important points that influenced our evolution. And then we'll review the individual solutions in our enterprise voice archiving solution set. And then we'll also provide you some common use cases for each. Then we'll briefly go over the other solutions that we offer and the value-added services that we have. So moving to the next slide, with that being said, I'll introduce myself. My name is Emily Miller. I'm the Director of Marketing at Wilmac. And those who will be leading the discussion today are Wilmac's Steve McDonnell and Mark Huber. Steve, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to start us off?
Yes, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Steve McDonnell, and I'm the VP of Sales here at Wilmac.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Huber. I am the Director of Sales Engineering and a 23-year veteran in the call recording industry.
Awesome. Okay, thank you both. Now we will move on to the meat of the presentation, and I'm going to let Steve talk about how we got here. So go ahead, Steve.
Great, thanks, Emily. Again, thanks for everybody who joined today. We're really excited that you guys have attended this webinar. So before we dive into enterprise voice archiving, I just wanted to give everyone a quick overview of how Wilmac became a voice specialist and how we kind of jumped into the enterprise voice archiving world. As Emily alluded to, we were founded in 1957. We started as a dictation and court recording equipment reseller. So our roots have always been in recording. Just today, it's a bit different, obviously, with being voice recording and more digitalized. We pride ourselves on our emphasis on processes and people. We continued to grow and develop since we were founded, and things really changed around 1992, as you can see in this slide. We transitioned into selling and servicing voice recording solutions, primarily in the public safety and financial services industries, and right here at our headquarters in Rochester and throughout upstate New York. Around 1999, we expanded into Canada, opened up our office in Toronto, and our Wilmac Canada entity was born then. We do have the Wilmac Canada team that sits up in our Toronto offices. We continued our success and expanded our territory and our partnerships with NICE Systems at that point. In 2003, we moved into the Manhattan area to really be close to the financial market and help them respond to the changing regulatory environment. We saw a lot of opportunity there. We had a lot of customers in the trading floor world that really needed to get a handle on their voice recording. And that was when us going into the Manhattan area, where we still obviously have offices today. Same with Toronto. We're proud to be premier partners of the industry-leading recording vendors like NICE, as I mentioned, Barrett, and Calabrio. Probably around 2014, 2015, we found an opportunity to expand our business into this enterprise voice archiving market. And it was really driven by customers. We had a lot of customers that didn't know what to do with their legacy voice data when they either upgraded their NICE solution or went to a Barrett solution. They were unable to access their voice data because it was either in a proprietary format or encrypted, and they just couldn't get to it. And if the vendors did offer it to them, it would be very expensive. So we developed tools and processes to be able to get access to these audio files for our customers. After a couple of years, and our customers wanted a place to store this safely, and they needed a mechanism to search and replay it. So we started building a simple search and replay system that they could locate and manage all their legacy calls. So again, it was born out of our customers. We never really marketed it. We never really pushed it to the forefront of our sales, and development was all outsourced. Our engineers only knew a little bit about it on some implementation. Fast forward to today, all of our EVA solutions are fully developed in-house by a team made up of our own software engineers. The past 2 years, we've started to market this more. So we're starting to consistently engage with customers and organizations like yourselves. And that's how we now drive the product. So any feature and functionality that you're going to see in this presentation today was driven from an actual customer use case, and we continue to do that. One of the big movements right now that we aren't speaking about too much in this particular presentation is being able to host this solution in our own AWS cloud and push it out to the market that way as well. So we're very excited about where our EVA solutions are going, that we call continuity. And we serve, contact centers, financial services, and then public safety organizations as well, which we'll dive in today. But that's kind of the recap of where Wilmac's been and how we kind of got into this EVA world, enterprise voice archiving. With that, I believe I'll hand it over to Mark now.
All right, thanks, Steve. So let's take a look at our EVA solutions and some common use cases for each of them. The first one I'm going to be touching on is Wilmac extraction. So this is a solution that has to do with a very common scenario that our customers run into. They have a call recording system. It's been serving them well for many years. It's been reliably capturing and storing their voice calls, and it provides a convenient user interface so that they can access and replay those calls. But with all technology, eventually it reaches the end of its life cycle and it's time for it to be retired and replaced. And they may be replacing it with a system from a different vendor. So this should be fairly routine, right? I mean, after all, your IT folks migrate data from old systems to new ones all the time. But with call recording, we run into an unexpected problem, and that's the voice files and the associated metadata are in proprietary formats, and these tools don't seem to have any way to do bulk exports of data. So, if you call the vendor for help, you might be surprised that they give you a quote, and it's a quote for either services or some kind of a bulk extraction tool, and it's typically way more expensive than you may have been expecting. So this leaves a lot of our customers feeling like their data is locked up and stuck in this old system. So here's where Wilmac can help you out. Our engineers have decades of experience behind them, and they have the know-how to get data out of these old systems, get it converted into open standard formats so that you can keep your data and get rid of the old system. This puts you back in control of your data without draining your budget. So let me give you a little bit of a use case here. Similarly, let's say you're in a regulated industry and you're required to record all of your calls. Well, one day the regulators come to you with an investigation regarding certain individuals, and you have to locate and turn over a large volume of voice files in a short amount of time. Now, those voice files are not in an open standard format, which the regulators require. And you're in a time crunch to convert all of these files into an open format and then turn them over to the regulators, or else you have to face big fines for non-compliance. So at Wilmac, our engineers have a deep understanding of how these audio files are encoded, and we can transcode virtually any file format into an open one that the regulators are going to accept. And we know how to scale up these projects to get them done on time in order to avoid those hefty fines. And we even offer transcription services too, which can turn those voice files into readable, searchable text, and that enables you to quickly locate exactly what it is that you're looking for. So let me give you an actual example of a project that we've done for a global investment bank. They were approached by the Department of Justice, and they were instructed to produce all recordings from 2 of their traders over a 6-year period. And they were instructed to turn them over in 1 month or face fines and other penalties. So this came to around 200,000 recordings, but they needed to be located within all of the recordings from the trading floor over that 6-year period. And that totaled about 100 million recordings. So to compound the complexity here, some of those recordings were on magnetic tapes and DVDs, and they had almost 500 pieces of media that they needed to go through. So the way we approached this is we built a multi-server system. We calculated the amount of processing power and the number of media drives that were going to be necessary in order to comb through this vast amount of data, locate the necessary recordings within that time allotted. And as it turned out, we were able to complete that job, and we were able to get the audio that they required and delivered to the Department of Justice within just a few days to spare. And that's essentially how the Wilmac extraction service is done. So before I move on to our next EVA solution, Emily, do we have any questions in the chat, or are we ready to move on?
I'll check real quick, and this is just a reminder to our audience that if you do have a question throughout the presentation, feel free to enter it in the window, the question or the chat window, and we'll answer it throughout. You don't have to wait till the end. But it looks like we're good to move on to continuity replay. So go ahead, Mark.
All right, great. So continuity replay. This is a tool that goes hand in hand with the Wilmac extraction. Once those voice files have been extracted from an old call recording system and we've converted them, what happens next? So you still have to comply with regulatory requirements. You have to retain them for many years, and you still need a way to search and replay. And this is where continuity replay comes in. It's a browser-based application, and it gives you the same search capabilities that you had in your old system, but with a modern application. And we've designed it to be simple enough so that many of our customers are able to use it right out of the box with little or no end user training. Most importantly, continuity replay does not lock up your data into proprietary formats. You stay in control of your data, and we provide you the tools that you need to manage that data for years to come. And we include important features like bulk export, retention purging, and litigation hold. So continuity replay has the scalability as well. It can handle very large voice repositories, and it can even access multiple voice repositories, even if they came from systems made by different vendors. So let's take a look at a use case. You know, in the financial services industry, for example, long retention requirements aren't unusual. Sometimes those requirements are up to 10 years. To maintain these calls, you can use continuity replay. Now, 10 years is an awfully long time in the technology space. How many of us are still using the same computers and software that we used over 10 years ago? But you have to ensure that calls that you recorded yesterday are still going to be able to be retrieved and played in the year 2032. So you have to have a future-proof solution. And our approach to that is to store your data in an open standard format. And we also built the continuity replay application on industry standards as well, so that we can ensure that both the data and the application are still going to be accessible well into the future. Our overarching philosophy behind this approach is that it's your data, not ours. Even if your call recording vendor were to disappear completely, you're still entitled to have access to your data for as long as you need it, right? So let me give you an actual example. We recently engaged on a project for a life insurance company, and they were decommissioning 2 call recording systems that contained about 50 million recordings, and the recordings were stored in an old EMC Centera storage network. Their objective here was to maintain compliance with their 10-year retention requirement and completely decommission that old call recording system. So here, Wilmac's strategy includes extracting all the files from Centera, converting them into open standard format, and then building a single continuity replay system to provide search and replay access to both repositories. One of the key deliverables in projects like this is to maintain all of the metadata from the original systems, and we're able to accomplish this with no loss of information.
I'm just going to quickly interject and add a few remarks about continuity replay because it's such a useful tool. The newest update for continuity replay was just released with a new UI and the addition of litigation hold and retention purge features. We've also got some great content on our website and on LinkedIn about continuity replay, and some exciting projects are in the works that I'm going to touch on briefly in a little bit. But now that all continuity replay development is done in-house by our team of software engineers at Wilmac, we appreciate input from people like you with recording environments. The recommendations for new features and functionalities are always greatly appreciated. And speaking of features and functionalities, I think this is a great place to hand it over to Steve to talk you through our continuity replay solution suite. So I will hand it over to Steve now. Oh, Steve, you might be muted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Great about that, folks. So this is kind of the visual that we try to give our customers and prospects of our continuity package. So this has to do with what Mark just kind of walked you through. He walked you through the extraction process, which in this slide would be legacy. So we call the NICE, the Variant, Calabrio, Redbox, ASC, whoever you want to talk about there, is kind of a legacy recording compared to production, which we would say is more of the CCAS cloud solutions. So in Mark's first example, when he talked about doing those large extractions, that would be the lockbox moving to the unlock box, and then, you know, for the example he used, they were sending it to the DOJ for whatever tools they were going to have to utilize, whether that was analytics or transcription. What we offer as well is obviously to do the unlocking and the extraction, and then to use continuity replay for legacy purposes. So that's really where we kind of have grown continuity replay as your legacy voice management system. So a company might have to retain their calls for 10 years. They might have NICE, they might have Variant, and now they're on production Calabrio. It doesn't matter, you know, what it was recorded on. Once it's in continuity replay, they can manage all of their legacy calls from there. As Mark pointed out, the first feature functionality that was built on this product was geared towards legacy. So you had retention purge, legal hold, simple search and replay, easy deployment. As we've moved into other phases, you'll see some of the newer feature and functionality that I'll talk about at the end of the slide. So that is still our most common use case. Companies that might acquire a lot of different companies that have different type of voice solutions, and they want to bring all the voice solutions into one location for compliance reasons. That would be another play for continuity replay. Mark is going to speak to, after this, continuity, what we call automated, which is basically This top going from legacy, we unlock it and we would do it on a daily or almost real-time basis. And it doesn't actually go into our continuity replay UI. All we're doing is in an automated fashion, unlocking the data so our customers can use the third-party analytics, third-party transcription, this kind of section over to the right. So we get a lot of customers, especially in the contact center. This is where we play a lot in the contact center world, that want to use a Clara Bridge, want to use a Bochi transcription. Third-party companies that don't necessarily work well with the nice variants of the world. And we're basically sitting there as middleware, opening it up so they can get access to it. And then the third use case, which we're seeing much, much more today, is when customers are going from a nice or a variant up to a CX1 or a 5.9, and where we're storing in our continuity replay all the legacy calls. And then on top of it, we're doing what we kind of term as near-term offline storage. Whether that's a highly compliant customer who doesn't necessarily want their audio files sitting up in Genesis's cloud. It's good for maybe a couple months, but they want to get it down to their own environment, whether that's their own AWS storage or their own on-prem storage. We export it there, and then they utilize continuity replay from there. And that's where we're starting to see some more advanced feature functionality that we're building in. The speech-to-text transcription, audio redaction, and then next on the list is e-discovery, which kind of has the phonetics index phrase searching built into it. So a lot on this slide. It's a work in progress. We're trying to, fit everything in it. I hope I articulated it all right. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to type them out, and we'll make sure we get them answered at the end. But that in general is what this slide encompasses. And the bottom line is we're trying to manage, help our customers manage their voice data, and also help them make sense and value out of their voice data, whether that's helping them get it to a third-party vendor or us assisting them with that. So with that, I will toss it back to you, Emily.
All right. Thanks, Steve. I apologize in advance. They seem to have chosen right now to do some construction out my window, but I'll keep going. So continuity replay has so many use cases, and it can really fit into a multitude of different environments. So on that slide that Steve just went over, you can see a sneak peek of, oh, actually, I'll move on to the next slide. So you can see a sneak peek of the continuity replay version 4 release that came out very recently. And I really wanted to stress that Wilmac developed continuity replay out of customer requests. And with that in mind, we work to customize the application to meet your unique business needs. So the version added retention purge and litigation hold, like we mentioned before. And as you can see, businesses have the ability to customize the application and search criteria according to how you will be using it. Now, after this presentation, if you feel continuity replay or any of our EVA solutions can fit into your organization, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on LinkedIn, email, phone, our website, any of those channels. I'll be posting my contact information at the end of the session for your reference, so feel free to take a screenshot or picture of it then. But we're really happy to sit down with you and discuss the opportunities within your organization and get your feedback. So let me just check the chat real quick to make sure we're all set to move on. And then I'm going to toss it over to Mark now for Continuity Automated.
All right, thanks, Emily. So Continuity Automated. Now, maybe your company has a call recording system in production and you're happy with it, but you want to access the voice recordings out of it so that you can utilize a third-party application like analytics, transcription, business intelligence tools, reporting, surveillance, something along those lines. Now, your current call recording vendor probably sells their own products for those uses, but maybe it's not quite the right fit for your needs. But you're unable to use third-party platforms and plug them into your recording platform because of those proprietary file formats. So that's where Continuity Automated comes in. It's able to export audio directly from the archive of most major recording platforms, and it prepares the extracted audio for ingestion into a third-party platform. We can process audio from most audio archives. We can reformat it, transcode it automatically, and do that on a regular basis. And we can do this for both on-premise recording systems as well as cloud-based recording systems. So instead of being limited to your call recording vendor's analytics or reporting applications, you can now use the tool of your choice with Continuity Automated.
Great, thanks, Mark. Before we move on to the other side of our business in compliance and customer experience, I wanted to plug a few materials that will give you more information on our EVA solutions. This past fall, we actually put together our first ever voice archive management series, where our subject matter experts wrote essays on these 3 solutions that Mark and Steve just covered. So we then finished the series with a webinar, now on demand, where we talked about how these solutions are used in real life, going a little bit more in depth than we have today. And all the content from that series can be found on our website in the blog section. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me directly as well, and I can send it over to you. And now with a little bit of a sneak peek, we're also currently working on an ebook relevant to our EVA solutions, where we go in crazy nitty-gritty detail. It'll be released in the next month or so, and you guys are the first to hear about it. And I don't want to reveal too much, but this is not a book for dummies. Go ahead and chew on that one. But be on the lookout for that ebook coming into your inbox soon. It'll really give you the nitty-gritty details of how these solutions are used and done by the people at Wilmac. Steve, go ahead and start us off on our other solutions now.
Great, thanks, Emily. So we just wanted to end with kind of a quick overview of our portfolio, I would say. Again, today was focused on our EVA, which is in the bottom left-hand corner, voice management and archiving. It's all around our Wilmac continuity products, whether it's automated or replay. Those are actual Wilmac's products, actual Wilmac's IP. As I discussed at the beginning, our company was built as a reseller and service provider. And originally, it was around voice recording and monitoring. So that is still a big focus of our business. Financial compliance, recording trading floors, recording banks, building managed services around it. We are busy in our offices in Manhattan and Toronto. With that, we expand internationally because of the way the banks are set up. And in that space, we really focus, we really partner with NICE and Barron primarily. And then when we dive into public safety, 911 centers, government, county, that is another big practice group of ours all around New York. Actually, the Northeast states down to probably Maryland, some of the mid-Atlantic states, and then pretty much all of Eastern Canada. And that, again, primarily is NICE focused. And then the contact center, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. And we run the gamut with that from NICE and Barrett to a lot of Calabrio for workforce management specifically. So those are the areas we play with, what we would call voice recording and monitoring. When we dive into customer experience, those are newer for us. They're spots that we are diving into as we speak. We're building our teams right now. NICE CX1, the big CCAS solution, obviously was made sense to us because of our partnership with NICE. So we have a team that sells that, and then we have a team of implementation specialists as well. Clarabridge and Poly AI go into customer experience, whether you're talking all types of analytics, and then Poly AI is kind of newer technology. They're from the UK. I think we're one of their only North American partners, but it's conversational AI. So calling into a contact center and having a robot speak to you, and where you don't actually have to go to a human. So those are kind of our actual products that we're reselling and supporting, and on top of obviously the Wilmac continuity stuff. For our services and everything else, I will hand it over to Mark to kind of give you a background. And services is really the backbone of what Wilmac is. So Mark.
All right, thanks, Steve. The service side of our business, this ranges everywhere from pre-sales support to our managed services offering. So let me go over each of these. So Wilmac's subject matter experts, we begin with objective consulting to optimize and ensure an accurate discovery and solution-based design process. Because we're partners with multiple industry-leading vendors, we're able to help you find the solution that best fits your needs rather than just the one solution that we might happen to offer. So this whole process begins with our sales engineering team. We create system designs or solutions to your business challenges, and we build these as thorough, detailed, and accurate solutions to your business needs. Our sales engineers are a major part of our pre-sales process. Our goal is to create clarity for you and establish trust with you. Our professional services come next, and that's done with careful attention to detail with the goal of deploying this solution that meets your business needs and the technical requirements of your organization. So our professional services team handles designing and planning, implementation, training, move ads changes, and more along those lines. Then after implementation, you're going to need responsive technical support with those solutions. So that's where our managed services come in. We'll help you detect problems, we'll help you mitigate risk, prevent system failure, and optimize security. We want to ensure that you're 100% compliant with any regulations that you're required to comply with. And we want to keep you on track to achieving your bottom line goals as well. Our managed services do include things like proactive system health checks, remote management and monitoring, operating system and application patch management, and more along the lines of support. Now, routine care is also an essential part of maintaining the quality and efficiency of any solution. So we offer both on-site and remote support services that are flexible and reliable. And that means that Wilmac's dedicated to providing superior service for whatever needs you might have.
Great, thanks, Mark. As you can see, over the 65 years that we've been around, we really have a good grasp on what's going on in the industry and what our customers want. And that's why we do offer a multitude of solutions, because we want to meet the unique business needs of your environment. So thank you to both Steve and Mark for all of that information. It was awesome. And as you can see, Wilmac provides a really end-to-end voice experience, is what we like to call it. We sell and we service recording platforms that facilitate, capture, analyze, optimize, and archive your captured communications. So before we close and review just a few more questions or comments, I wanted to thank you all for attending. And make sure to please answer the survey on your screen afterwards and leave us some feedback. So let me check out the chat real quick and the questions to see what we've got going. And all right, I found one. All right, Steve, I've got a question for you. It reads, how did you come up with a solution like continuity replay, and when did you bring product development in-house? If you want to start with that one.
Yeah, so we came up with it. Again, it was customer driven 5 or 6 years ago. And the same scenario kept coming up. Customers were having issues getting access to their voice recording vendors' voice data, whether it was the audio files or metadata, they couldn't get access to it. So we came up with that solution, and then we built out the UI that they could search and replay. For a while, it was very simple, basic, just so they could search and replay old calls. We decided to bring it in-house because we started building it out a lot more. More and more customers that were utilizing it were coming to us asking us, well, could we put our, like for instance, we're on a webinar right now, could you put the voice from a webinar in there? Could you, a lot of people are using Teams and Zoom today, could you put those voice streams in there? As I alluded to on the other call with all the CCAS solutions. And then when you're doing that and you're putting newer audio in, and it's not just legacy, you have to build out some more feature and functionality so it can compete and kind of can be similar to a nice or Baron product. So that's really why we brought development in-house, to have more control and to be able to speed up feature functionality development quicker.
Great, thanks, Steve. Sorry, I was muted. You would think being voice specialist, I'd be able to unmute myself at the right moment, but we're working on it. It's a work in progress. And I actually have a question to follow that up, Steve. And it says, do you have an example of using continuity replay in a contact center?
Yes, absolutely. If you want to go back to that original slide that I was talking to, a common theme that we're getting from contact center customers, a lot of our contact centers are, insurance, financial services, healthcare, anyone that has some sort of regulatory retention rates, audio retention tends to be a lot of the people we're working with. And what we're seeing a lot today is, we're not only storing their old NICE or Barrett calls for replay purposes, but as I kind of started to speak to, a lot of the contact centers are moving to CCAS solution. We listed 4 on this, 4 of the more popular ones. But just this week, Google announced that they're jumping into the game, so they have a solution coming out. And what is different from these solutions to the legacy is the legacy always allowed the customer to store their audio files on customer premise, whether it was their on-premise or whether it was their cloud. It was always still in the customer's environment. When they move over to these type of solutions, it's actually going into the vendor's environment, and some of the higher regulatory customers want to make sure they get that down as quick as possible. Not to say that it's automatically coming straight down after it's recorded, but a lot of customers are saying, all right, after 3 months, I'd rather store it internally. So they're bringing it down into their own storage. Again, if you look below, it could be the cloud storage or on-prem storage, and utilizing our continuity replay as the voice management system for those calls. So we're seeing that in the contact center. We're trying to do some market research with current customers. There's various reasons, from cost, compliance, having most of the calls in one system is easier to manage. So there's various reasons why customers are doing that. But that is an example that we're getting quite a lot in the contact center as we see people moving to these CCAS solutions. And actually, as you saw from the portfolio, we resell CX1. Pretty much every one of our customers that we've sold CX1, we've sold continuity with as an added application. So very common in the contact centers.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to quickly move to our final slide so you have our contact information up, mine personally, as well as our website, phone number, and on LinkedIn. So Mark, I think I got a question for you. How do you scale a Wilmac extraction project? So 100 million recordings is a lot from the example that you reviewed. And how do you plan for something like that in a month?
Scalability, a question near and dear to an engineer's heart. Thanks. When you're doing these data conversions, it really comes down to processing power. So as a rule of thumb, I start with a single processor core can do about 1 million files in a week. So you just take that rule of thumb and you figure, okay, how many weeks or months do we have to complete the project? How many files do we have to do? And then you can do the math to figure out how many processing cores you're going to need to do the conversion. And then it's just a matter of building 1 or more servers with enough processing power. So, when we get into the hundreds of millions, and we've even done projects up to 1 billion, sometimes we're putting in 4 or 8 servers in order to do parallel processing so that we can get through all of the audio files in the time allotted. So that's essentially how it works.
Gotcha. So it's interesting to see it from a technical perspective, and that was kind of the goal of this webinar, was to kind of give you those details of what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and the breadth of what we can offer. So those are all the questions that we have today, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes back because this was planned for 1 to 1:45. So go and do whatever you want with those 5 minutes. But I just wanted to say thank you again for joining us for gaining control of your voice data with Wilmac. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. Leave us some feedback. Your comments and questions are always welcome. and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.